The soldier's name was Captain Marcus Kane, a man who had seen more battles than he cared to count. His rugged face bore the scars of countless skirmishes, but his piercing blue eyes still held a spark that refused to fade. He was stationed on Elysium 7, a remote outpost orbiting an alien planet known for its breathtaking purple skies and strange flora. The base served as both research facility and military stronghold, where humans coexisted uneasily with their extraterrestrial allies. Among those allies was Zara Venn, an alien nurse whose beauty could stop even the most hardened soldiers in their tracks. Her iridescent skin shimmered like liquid moonlight, shifting hues depending on her emotions. She had 6 delicate fingers on each hand, tipped with soft glowing pads that emitted faint warmth when she touched someone, a feature many patients found oddly comforting. Zara's voice carried a melodic cadence, almost hypnotic, and her almond-shaped eyes glowed faintly green under the fluorescent lights of the medical bay. Marcus first met Zara during one of his routine checkups after returning from patrol duty. At first, he tried to keep things strictly professional, avoiding eye contact whenever possible because something about her made him feel unsettled. It wasn't fear. It was more akin to awe mixed with confusion. How could such an otherworldly being exist? And why did she always seem so intrigued by him? Zara, for her part, couldn't help but notice how different Marcus was compared to the other soldiers. Most men were either intimidated or overly aggressive around her kind, but Marcus simply went about his business with quiet determination. There was no arrogance, no false bravado, just raw authenticity. She admired that. One day, while tending to another soldier recovering from a minor injury, Zara accidentally brushed against Marcus's arm as she passed by. For a split second, their eyes locked, and time seemed to stand still. Neither said anything, but the moment lingered long after they parted ways. From then on, every interaction between them felt charged with unspoken tension, though neither dared to acknowledge it. It wasn't until weeks later, during what should have been a standard vaccination procedure, that everything changed. Marcus sat on the edge of the exam table, shirtless, muscles tense from anticipation. Not of pain, but of whatever mysterious connection he couldn't quite shake with Zara. "Relax," Zara said softly, her voice weaving through the sterile air of the medical bay. "This will only take a moment." She reached for a vial sitting precariously close to another identical one on the tray beside her. Both contained clear liquids, but their purposes were worlds apart. One was a harmless immunization designed to protect against alien pathogens unique to Elysium 7. The other, well, let's just say it wasn't meant for human consumption. As Zara prepared the syringe, her mind wandered briefly to the previous night's conversation with her mentor, Dr. Lyric, who had warned her about mixing up medications. But fatigue clouded her focus. She'd been working double shifts, and before she realized her mistake, the needle pierced Marcus's skin. For a fleeting moment, nothing happened. Then came the burn. "Ow!" Marcus yelped, jerking away instinctively. He stared at Zara wide-eyed, clutching his arm. What the hell was that? Panic surged through Zara like a tidal wave. Her glowing eyes widened, and her normally calm demeanor shattered. She glanced down at the empty vial now lying innocently on the tray next to its twin. Oh no! Before Marcus could demand answers, Zara sprang into action. With surprising speed, she pressed a button on the wall panel, sealing the door shut with a hydraulic hiss. The room plunged into eerie silence except for the faint hum of machinery overhead. "Keep your voice down," Zara whispered urgently, her words tinged with desperation. "We need to keep this secret." "Secret," Marcus repeated incredulously, standing up despite the dull ache radiating from his arm. "You just injected me with something you clearly weren't supposed to. What did you do, Zara?" Her antennae-like appendages twitched nervously, a trait common among her species when under stress. I don't know exactly what it does," she admitted, wringing her hands together. "But if anyone finds out, we'll both be in serious trouble." Marcus blinked, trying to process this revelation. Trouble? That word hardly seemed adequate given the situation. Whatever had been injected into him might already be wreaking havoc inside his body, and here she was talking about secrets. "You've got 5 seconds to explain yourself," he growled, taking a step closer. His towering frame loomed over her diminutive form, yet there was no malice in his gaze, only confusion and growing concern. Zara swallowed hard. "The injection, it's experimental. Designed for my people, not yours. If Command discovers I gave it to you..." She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Punishments for unauthorized experimentation were severe, often resulting in imprisonment or worse. A heavy pause settled between them. Marcus exhaled sharply, running a hand over his stubbled jawline. Despite his anger, he couldn't ignore the vulnerability etched across Zara's face. She looked genuinely terrified, not just for herself, but for him too. "All right?" he finally muttered, lowering his voice. "Let's assume I believe you. What happens next?" Zara hesitated, weighing her options. "First, we monitor you closely. Watch for any side effects. Second," she paused, biting her lip nervously. "Second, we figure out how to reverse it, or at least contain it. Until then, no one can know." Marcus crossed his arms, skepticism written all over his expression. "And what makes you think I won't march straight out of here and report this?" Her answer came swiftly, laced with equal parts defiance and pleading. "Because deep down you trust me, and because if you tell anyone, they'll lock you up faster than you can blink. Do you really want to become some lab rat for the higher-ups?" He opened his mouth to argue but found himself at a loss for words. As much as he hated to admit it, she had a point. Trust wasn't something Marcus handed out freely, but Zara had earned a sliver of his respect over their brief encounters. Besides, storming out now would leave him with more questions than answers, and potentially deadly consequences. "Fine," he relented grudgingly. "But if anything weird happens to me, anything, you're gonna fix it. Got it?" Zara nodded vigorously, relief washing over her features. "I promise. We'll get through this together." Together. The word echoed in Marcus's mind, stirring emotions he didn't have time to unpack. For now, survival took precedence. They were bound by secrecy, forced to navigate whatever storm lay ahead as reluctant partners. Unbeknownst to either of them, the first signs of change were already beginning to stir within Marcus's bloodstream, silent and insidious. Time was running out. Over the following days, Marcus noticed subtle changes creeping into his daily life. At first, they were easy to dismiss. A heightened awareness of sounds, an inexplicable craving for certain foods he'd never liked before. But soon, the transformations became impossible to ignore. His vision sharpened beyond belief, allowing him to spot minute details in the distance that others overlooked entirely. Colors appeared richer, almost overwhelming in their vibrancy, and shadows seemed alive with movement. It was as though his very perception of reality had shifted. Then came the physical symptoms. His strength increased dramatically. Tasks that once required effort now felt effortless. During combat drills, he moved faster than ever before, dodging blows and landing hits with precision that left his fellow soldiers stunned. Even his reflexes seemed superhuman, reacting to stimuli milliseconds faster than logic dictated. Yet these newfound abilities brought challenges too. Simple actions like picking up a cup without crushing it or walking normally without startling everyone around him became exercises in restraint. Zara, meanwhile, juggled her responsibilities at the medical bay with clandestine efforts to understand the serum's effects. Late nights turned into early mornings as she pored over ancient texts and experimental data, searching for clues about reversing, or at least stabilizing, the transformation. Her guilt gnawed at her relentlessly, driving her to push harder despite the exhaustion. When she wasn't researching, she monitored Marcus covertly, observing how he adapted to his evolving condition. Each observation added another layer of complexity to the puzzle, complicating her calculations further. Their interactions grew increasingly strained yet undeniably intimate. Conversations shifted from cautious exchanges to deeper discussions about trust, ethics, and the blurred lines between right and wrong. One evening, after hours spent reviewing dense scientific journals, Zara finally broke the tension. "I never intended for this to happen," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You must believe me." Marcus leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Believe you? Sure. But believing doesn't make this go away." He gestured toward himself, frustration evident in every line of his body. "Look at me, Zara. I'm changing not just physically, but mentally. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing control." Her antennae drooped slightly, signaling her remorse. "I'm sorry," she murmured, reaching out tentatively to touch his arm. This time, instead of recoiling, Marcus allowed the contact. Her glow warmed his skin, offering fleeting comfort amidst the chaos. Despite their shared predicament, moments of levity occasionally surfaced, easing the weight of their burden. Once, while attempting to recalibrate a piece of equipment in the lab, Zara accidentally triggered a malfunction that sent sparks flying everywhere. Startled, Marcus leapt backward, knocking over a stack of papers. Instead of panicking, they burst into laughter, the absurdity of the situation breaking the tension momentarily. Yet humor couldn't mask the underlying drama forever. As Marcus's condition progressed, paranoia began to creep in. Other soldiers noticed his erratic behavior, his sudden bursts of energy followed by periods of intense introspection. Whispers circulated throughout the base, speculating about everything from alien influence to psychological breakdowns. To deflect suspicion, Marcus adopted a stoic facade, masking his turmoil behind a carefully constructed shield of normalcy. Meanwhile, Zara faced her own trials. Word of unauthorized experiments reached higher command, prompting inspections and inquiries. Every knock on the medical bay door sent her heart racing, fearing discovery. Sleep eluded her, replaced by nightmares of imprisonment and failure. Yet through it all, she remained steadfast, driven by a mix of responsibility and burgeoning affection for Marcus. Their bond deepened with each passing day, forged in the crucible of adversity. They argued, laughed, cried, and strategized together, navigating the treacherous waters of secrecy and survival. Though neither voiced it aloud, both knew they were no longer merely captain and nurse. They were partners, united by circumstance and choice alike. As tensions mounted, so did the stakes. Unknown to either of them, forces far greater than mere oversight committees lurked in the shadows, watching, waiting. The injection had set off a chain reaction neither could fully comprehend, drawing attention from entities vested in maintaining order or exploiting chaos. For now, however, Marcus and Zara focused on surviving each new challenge, clinging to hope amidst uncertainty. The base buzzed with activity as usual, but beneath the surface, whispers of suspicion swirled like a brewing storm. Soldiers exchanged furtive glances whenever Marcus walked by, his enhanced senses picking up fragments of their hushed conversations. "Did you see him move?" One voice hissed. "Like lightning." Another chimed in. "Something's off about him." Ever since that checkup, though no one dared confront him directly, the unease was palpable, thickening the air around him like smoke. Zara, too, felt the weight of prying eyes. During her rounds, she caught glimpses of colleagues lingering near restricted areas, pretending to review charts or adjust equipment, while secretly observing her movements. One particularly nosy technician even asked pointed questions about recent inventory discrepancies. "Just routine checks," he claimed with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Zara nodded politely, all the while calculating how best to cover her tracks without raising further suspicion. Complicating matters further, Commander Hale, the stern, no-nonsense leader of the outpost, announced an impromptu inspection scheduled for the following week. Officially, it was framed as a routine audit to ensure compliance with intergalactic protocols. Unofficially, rumors hinted at something more sinister: allegations of unauthorized experiments leaking from higher command. The timing couldn't have been worse. If anyone discovered the truth about Marcus's condition, or worse, traced it back to Zara, the consequences would be catastrophic. Desperate to stay ahead of the curve, Marcus and Zara devised a plan. They agreed to limit their interactions publicly, maintaining a professional distance to avoid drawing attention. Privately, however, they worked tirelessly to mitigate the risks. Zara scoured classified databases for information on similar cases, poring over encrypted files late into the night. Meanwhile, Marcus practiced controlling his newfound abilities, honing them in secret during solitary training sessions. He learned to modulate his strength, temper his speed, and suppress the occasional surge of sensory overload that threatened to overwhelm him. One evening, under the guise of routine maintenance, Zara sneaked into the restricted archives hidden deep within the base. The dimly lit corridor leading to the vault was eerily silent, save for the rhythmic hum of security drones patrolling nearby. Heart-pounding, she entered the code she'd memorized weeks ago, a sequence stolen from an unsuspecting administrator's terminal. The heavy steel door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing rows upon rows of dusty shelves filled with forgotten knowledge. Inside, Zara found what she'd been searching for: a series of classified logs detailing failed attempts at cross-species genetic modification. Some entries described horrifying outcomes: subjects reduced to vegetative states, others driven mad by uncontrollable mutations. Others hinted at successes, though none provided concrete solutions. Still, buried within the dense technical jargon, Zara uncovered a crucial clue: a reference to an antidote prototype stored in cryogenic containment elsewhere on the base. Armed with this new lead, Zara hurried back to her quarters, careful to erase any trace of her intrusion. Back at her workstation, she cross-referenced the data with existing schematics, piecing together a map of the storage facility where the antidote might be located. But accessing it wouldn't be easy. The area was heavily guarded, accessible only via biometric scanners linked to senior personnel. Breaking in would require ingenuity and possibly assistance. When Marcus arrived later that night, slipping quietly through the door, Zara wasted no time sharing her findings. "There's a chance we can reverse this," she whispered urgently, spreading the diagrams across the table. "But we'll need to retrieve the antidote first. And we can't do it alone." Marcus studied the plans, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Who do we trust enough to bring in on this?" he asked, voicing the question they'd both been avoiding. Trust was a luxury neither could afford to squander. After a moment's hesitation, Zara replied, "Dr. Lyric. He's discreet, and he owes me a favor." Marcus raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Your mentor? The same guy who warned you about mixing up medications?" "Yes," Zara admitted, meeting his gaze squarely. "He may not approve of what I've done, but he values loyalty above all else. If we approach him carefully, he might help us." Though reluctant, Marcus conceded. They had little choice but to gamble on Lyric's discretion. Together, they crafted a story plausible enough to gain his cooperation without revealing the full extent of the situation. Early the next morning, Zara requested an emergency consultation with Lyric, citing unusual patient reactions to standard treatments. When the elderly scientist arrived, his sharp eyes immediately narrowed in suspicion. "What is this really about, Zara?" he demanded, brushing aside her fabricated explanation. "You're hiding something." Caught off guard, Zara faltered. Before she could respond, Marcus stepped forward, his imposing presence commanding attention. "Sir, with respect, we need your expertise. Lives are at stake, including mine." Lyric scrutinized them both, weighing their sincerity against the potential fallout. Finally, with a resigned sigh, he nodded. "Very well. Tell me everything." Thus began a precarious alliance, fraught with tension yet driven by necessity. Under Lyric's guidance, they refined their strategy, identifying weak points in the security system and coordinating a diversion to distract the guards. As the operation drew nearer, anxiety gnawed at Marcus and Zara, threatening to unravel their fragile resolve. Yet amidst the mounting pressure, their bond grew stronger, forged in the fires of shared peril. On the eve of their mission, Marcus found himself pacing Zara's quarters, restless and agitated. "What if we fail?" he muttered, raking a hand through his hair. "What if they find out before we can fix this?" Zara stood by the window, gazing out at the swirling purple nebulae beyond. "Without turning," she replied. "Then we face whatever comes next, together." Her words struck a chord deep within him, silencing his doubts, if only temporarily. Tomorrow would bring uncertainty, danger, and perhaps salvation. For now, they clung to hope, knowing that survival depended not just on skill or luck, but on the unshakable connection they'd forged in the shadow of chaos. As dawn broke over Elysium 7, casting ethereal light across the outpost, Marcus and Zara prepared for the mission that could determine their fate. The plan was intricate, requiring precision and nerve. While Lyric orchestrated a staged equipment malfunction to draw attention away from the cryogenic storage facility, Marcus and Zara would slip past the distracted guards and retrieve the antidote. Timing was critical. Any misstep could expose their deception. Clad in stealth suits designed to blend seamlessly with the environment, they moved cautiously through the labyrinthine corridors of the base. Each step echoed softly against the metallic walls, heightening their awareness of every sound. Zara's luminous skin dimmed slightly, adapting to minimize visibility, a trait unique to her species. Beside her, Marcus exuded controlled power, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to strike if necessary. Reaching the entrance to the storage facility, they encountered the first hurdle, the biometric scanner. Zara produced a small device Lyric had provided, attaching it discreetly to the panel. Within seconds, the mechanism whirred, overridden by the gadget's sophisticated algorithms. The door slid open silently, granting them access to the chilled interior. Rows of cylindrical pods lined the chamber, each containing samples preserved in suspended animation. Frost clung to the glass surfaces, obscuring labels partially obscured by condensation. Zara consulted the map she'd memorized, guiding Marcus toward the specific pod housing the antidote. Their breath misted in the frigid air, creating ephemeral clouds that vanished almost instantly. Suddenly, an alarm blared, shattering the silence. Red lights flashed intermittently, bathing the room in ominous hues. "They know!" Zara exclaimed, panic edging her voice. "We have to hurry." Marcus acted swiftly, using his enhanced strength to wrench the pod open. Inside lay a vial encased in protective casing, glowing faintly with an otherworldly luminescence. He grabbed it, securing it firmly in his grasp. "Got it!" he shouted over the din. But their escape route was blocked. Guards converged rapidly, alerted by the breach. Trapped, Marcus and Zara exchanged a glance laden with unspoken determination. "Follow my lead," Marcus instructed, positioning himself defensively. With astonishing agility, he launched himself at the nearest guard, disarming him with practiced efficiency. Using the confiscated weapon, he created a temporary barrier, buying them precious seconds. Zara utilized her natural abilities, emitting a high-frequency pulse that momentarily disoriented the remaining pursuers. Together, they fought their way through the throng, each movement synchronized as though choreographed. Emerging into the main corridor, they sprinted towards the rendezvous point where Lyric awaited. However, reinforcements appeared unexpectedly, cutting off their path. Cornered, Marcus pushed Zara behind him, shielding her with his body. "Stay back," he growled, facing the advancing troops. In a dramatic twist, Lyric intervened, wielding a portable EMP device that disabled the guards' weapons. "Go!" he urged, waving them forward. Seizing the opportunity, Marcus and Zara dashed past the immobilized soldiers, reaching the safety of a concealed exit. Breathing heavily, they regrouped outside, the vial clutched tightly in Marcus's hand. "We did it!" Zara gasped, relief washing over her features. But her joy was short-lived as realization dawned. The antidote was secured, yes, but the ordeal had only begun. The injection's effects still coursed through Marcus's veins, unpredictable and potent. And somewhere in the shadows, unseen forces continued to watch, waiting for their next move. As they stood there, catching their breath amidst the alien landscape, Marcus turned to Zara, his expression resolute. "Whatever happens next, we'll handle it together." Her glowing eyes met his, reflecting not just agreement but a profound understanding. Bound by shared trials and unyielding resolve, they braced themselves for the unknown future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the days stretched into weeks, Marcus and Zara found themselves spending more time together than ever before. The initial tension that had defined their partnership began to soften, replaced by a camaraderie born of shared struggles and near-death experiences. They teased each other relentlessly, often using humor as a way to cope with the mounting pressure. "You're such an idiot," Zara said one evening, leaning back in her chair as they reviewed data on the antidote's composition. Her iridescent skin shimmered faintly with amusement. "You could have just walked away when I locked that door. Instead, you stayed, and now look at us." Marcus smirked, tossing a crumpled piece of paper at her. "Oh, sure. Blame me for your mistake. If anyone's the idiot here, it's you. Who mixes up vials like some rookie intern?" Zara caught the paper midair with lightning reflexes she'd inherited from countless hours observing Marcus's newfound abilities. She raised an eyebrow, feigning offense. "Excuse me? I'm not the one who can't stop crushing cups or knocking over chairs because I forgot how strong I am." They both burst into laughter, the sound echoing through the small lab where they worked late into the night. These moments of levity became a lifeline, anchoring them amidst the chaos. Yet beneath the playful banter lay something deeper, a growing fondness neither dared name aloud. Their connection deepened during quieter times, when exhaustion forced them to slow down and simply exist together. One particularly grueling day ended with them sprawled on the floor of Zara's quarters, surrounded by scattered notes and half-empty coffee mugs. Marcus lay flat on his back, staring up at the ceiling while Zara rested her head on her knees, absently tracing patterns on the floor with one glowing finger. "This is insane," Marcus muttered, breaking the comfortable silence. "We've created such a mess. What are we even doing?" Zara tilted her head, studying him thoughtfully. "Surviving," she replied softly. "Isn't that what life is about? Making mistakes, cleaning them up, or trying to, and finding meaning along the way." He glanced at her, surprised by the wisdom in her words. For all her quirks and occasional clumsiness, Zara possessed an inner strength that never ceased to impress him. Slowly he sat up, meeting her gaze. "You know, For someone who almost killed me, you're not so bad. She grinned, nudging him playfully with her foot. And for someone who complains constantly, you're tolerable too. The teasing resumed, but there was a shift in the air. An unspoken acknowledgement of how much they relied on each other. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was trust, respect, and something warmer blossoming between them. One night, after another close call evading Commander Hale's increasingly suspicious inspections, Marcus found himself lingering outside Zara's quarters. He knocked lightly, unsure why he felt compelled to see her. When she opened the door, her eyes widened slightly in surprise. "Everything okay?" she asked, stepping aside to let him in. "Yeah, just—" He hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. "I guess I wanted to say thanks. You've been, well, amazing through all this." Zara blinked, clearly taken aback by his sincerity. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. "You're welcome, Marcus, but don't get used to me being nice. I still expect you to clean up your messes." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Deal." They spent the rest of the night talking. Not about experiments or antidotes, but about everything else. Childhood memories, dreams they'd long abandoned, fears they'd buried deep inside. With each story shared, the walls between them crumbled further, revealing vulnerabilities neither had expected to expose. It was during one of these conversations that Zara reached out, placing her hand gently on his arm. The warmth of her touch sent a jolt through him, though not unpleasantly. Their eyes met, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Neither moved nor spoke, yet the air crackled with unspoken emotion. "I think," Zara started, her voice barely above a whisper, "I think I care about you more than I should." Marcus swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest. "Me too," he admitted, his rough voice betraying the depth of his feelings. "But if we survive this, maybe we'll figure out what to do about it." Her smile was soft, tinged with hope. Maybe. From that moment forward, their bond transformed. No longer were they merely partners bound by necessity. They were two souls drawn inexorably closer, despite the odds stacked against them. Love bloomed quietly, nurtured by stolen glances, whispered jokes, and moments of quiet understanding. Even in the midst of danger, they found solace in each other, clinging to the fragile beauty of what they had built together. As the chaos surrounding their secret subsided and Marcus's condition stabilized thanks to Zara's relentless efforts with the antidote, life began to feel almost normal. The constant threat of discovery faded into the background, replaced by a quiet joy neither had anticipated. Their bond had grown stronger with each passing day, evolving from reluctant allies to steadfast friends, and finally, to something far deeper. Love had taken root in the most unlikely of places, a human soldier and an alien nurse, and it flourished against all odds. One evening, as they sat together under the shimmering purple skies of Elysium, 7. Marcus turned to Zara with a question that had been weighing on his mind for weeks. "What happens next for us?" he asked softly, tracing patterns on the ground with his finger. "I mean, after all this is over, what do we want?" Zara tilted her head, her glowing eyes reflecting the starlight. "I've never thought about after," she admitted. "My people don't often dream beyond survival. But," she paused, smiling shyly, "if I could choose anything, I'd want to build a life with you. A real one." Marcus felt his heart swell at her words. "Me too," he said, reaching out to take her hand. "Let's make it happen. Let's get married." The idea was met with laughter and nervous excitement. Neither had planned for such a future, but now that it was within reach, they couldn't imagine anything else. They decided to consult Dr. Lyric, not just as a trusted confidant, but also to understand the biological implications of their union. While interspecies relationships were rare, they weren't unheard of. However, successful bonds were exceedingly uncommon. Dr. Lyric listened intently as they explained their intentions, his expression unreadable. Finally, he sighed, removing his glasses and pinching the bridge of his nose. "You two are aware of the risks, aren't you?" he asked gravely. "Biologically speaking, your species are fundamentally incompatible. Even if conception were possible, which it likely isn't, the child would face unimaginable challenges. To attempt this, well, let's just say no one has succeeded before." His words hung heavy in the air, casting a shadow over their hopeful plans. Yet, instead of discouraging them, the warning only strengthened their resolve. "We're used to defying the odds," Marcus said firmly, squeezing Zara's hand. "If anyone can make this work, it's us." Zara nodded, determination shining in her eyes. We'll find a way. Together. With Lyric's cautious support, they embarked on a journey unlike any other. Using advanced genetic engineering techniques and drawing upon Zara's extensive medical knowledge, they explored every possibility to bridge the gap between their species. It was painstaking work, filled with setbacks and moments of doubt. But through it all, their love remained unwavering, a beacon guiding them forward. Months passed, and then came the day that changed everything. Zara stood frozen, staring at the results of yet another test, her hands trembling slightly. Marcus watched her anxiously, bracing himself for disappointment. Instead, she turned to him, tears streaming down her radiant face. "It worked," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "I'm pregnant." For a moment, Marcus couldn't process what she was saying. Then reality hit him like a tidal wave, and he swept her into his arms, spinning her around as laughter and tears mingled freely. "We did it," he murmured, holding her close. "Against all odds, we actually did it." News of their success spread cautiously among those they trusted most. Lyric beamed with pride, calling them pioneers who had rewritten the boundaries of biology. Friends and colleagues marveled at their achievement, though whispers of skepticism lingered in some corners. None of it mattered to Marcus and Zara. They had created a miracle, and nothing could dim their happiness. 9 months later, amidst a flurry of preparations and nervous anticipation, their first child was born. A tiny being with iridescent skin like Zara's and piercing blue eyes reminiscent of Marcus's gazed up at them, filling their hearts with awe. They named her Lyra, a name meaning harmony, a fitting tribute to the unity they had forged. Life as parents brought new challenges, but also unparalleled joy. Lyra grew quickly, exhibiting traits from both her parents. Curiosity and resilience inherited from Marcus, coupled with Zara's natural grace and intelligence. As the years went by, they welcomed more children into their family, each one unique yet undeniably a blend of their extraordinary heritage. Their home became a sanctuary of laughter, love, and learning. Marcus taught the kids how to defend themselves, instilling values of courage and integrity. Zara nurtured their creativity, sharing stories of her people's rich history and culture. Together, they raised their children to embrace their differences, celebrating the beauty of diversity in a universe often divided by fear and misunderstanding. Despite occasional reminders of the dangers lurking outside their peaceful existence, Marcus and Zara faced them side by side, united in purpose. They knew their family represented hope, a testament to what was possible when love transcended barriers. And while the road ahead was uncertain, they faced it without fear, knowing they had already conquered the impossible. In the end, theirs was not just a story of survival or defiance. It was a story of triumph, of two souls who dared to dream beyond the limits imposed upon them, forging a legacy that would endure for generations to come. Under the endless skies of Elysium 7, surrounded by the laughter of their children, Marcus and Zara lived the rest of their lives as a happy family, bound by love, courage, and an unshakable belief in the power of hope.